Welcome everybody. In this video, we're going to take our AspNetCore API and our Vuejs frontend. We're going to put it in a Docker container and run it in Google Cloud. If you want to follow along with this video, you're going to need three things. First, it's going to be a Firebase account, and you can pause the video here. Go ahead, create a Firebase account with a project, and that should have you covered on that front. Second thing, you should have a Windows Subversion for Linux 2 installed. We're going to quickly set up Docker. And the third thing is, if you know nothing about Docker and you want more information before this video, I already have a video that's a Docker introduction. Go ahead and watch that. The link is in the description. In the previous video, I showed how to set up vite with Vuejs with AspNetCore. This video is going to be about publishing it to live, right? So I showed how to generate production builds. This video is about publishing it. Let's get started. We're going to need to do two things to our project to kind of get it ready. First thing is the little fetch that we do in Hello World. At the moment, it's targeting localhost. In production, we're going to have our own domain, and it's not going to be localhost, right? There's a bunch of things that you can do with the .env config to configure it for special domains. We're not going to do any of that. We're just going to make sure that we're targeting the relative route, and that's it, right? So we're going to be hitting /test of our AspNetCore API. For AspNetCore, what we'll have to do is we'll have to go into startup, and not startup, actually just program. In program, on use startup, we will have to type in use URLs. And here we'll just say http:// and 0000 and still port 5000. So what this is just the configuration that allows it to run in a Docker container. Linux environment doesn't really play well with the local host. So this is just emitting the local host, and it's using the default local port, which is 000. I don't know if I missed out one more 0, or 127.0.0.1. Okay. So that's what that is. Those are the only two things that we need. If you've been following along from the previous video and you have the production folder there, let's go ahead and quickly rebuild this folder, right? If you already have it, delete it because you will need the updated files. Go ahead, I'll create production again. Let me open up my terminal. I will cd into src vite client. I will npm run build. That will produce my bundle. So that's done. So this should be this dist folder. I'm just going to go ahead and move it into production. I want to be in src, and the next thing I want is vite API. And again, I'll just publish it with configuration release. So that's done. Let's go ahead and open vite API, build a release, publish, and grab these files and move them into the production folder, just like that. So that's good. So this is basically what we want inside our Docker container. And same as I showed in the previous video where we use .NET vite API.dll, that just runs the application. And that's the command that we want to trigger. So first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to be able to build the container locally. You have the option of building the container in Google Cloud, but because it's an additional step to learn to do it in Google Cloud, I'm not going to do it. Building Docker images locally is more of an accessible thing. So first of all, what I'm going to say you're going to need is Windows Subversion for Linux 2, right? So we can start playing around with Docker. You can download Windows Subversion for Linux from the Microsoft Store. I'm going to launch mine, and this is going to be a fresh installation. So here's my username and password. I'll just do password for now. So here we are, right? One thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to close it. You can do it in that terminal. I have my own terminal here, which is the Windows terminal. I like it a little bit more. I have a couple of configurations here, so it's a little bit easier for me to use, and it has a bigger font, so you can actually see what I'm doing. So first things first is we want to install Docker. Again, I have a video about Docker. If you want to know more about it, link is in the description. All the links to these documentations, I'm going to leave them in the description as well, or you can basically try to find them yourselves, right? It's always fun to Google stuff. So anyway, in the installation bit, I'm going to go to Ubuntu because that's the distribution that I've just downloaded. I'm not going to bother with uninstalling older versions. I'm just going to go ahead and basically install it using the repository again. Just going to cut out all the boring parts where it sort of like goes through all of these installations. That's done. Next thing. Enter. Y flag. Good stuff, right? Next thing, triple click, paste, enter. Cool stuff, right? It's super easy, right? Okay, all of this, yeah, copy. I can do that. I've been doing that for quite a bit. Okay, cool. Again, let's run the update. Okay, and now this bit, container IO, don't really need that part, so I'm just gonna grab these two for Docker C and Docker C CLI. That'll be it. Why? Cool, that's done. So this is really the last step. You can read through the rest if you are interested in why this is the last step, but this is as far as we go. Right, so we're done with the Docker installation there. This next step is going to be about installing the Google Cloud SDK, but we're not there yet. First of all, let's sort out this Docker thing and let's build our application, right? First things first, again, I'm going to open up the VS Code and I'm going to launch the Windows Subversion for Linux from here. So the way to do that, and again, this is going to be crucial because I have a couple of them, right? If you also have a couple of them, this is how you do it. So WSL is the thing that launches Windows Subversion for Linux terminal for you. What you can do is you can type in -h and you have commands here, right? What we can do is we can list it, and here's the list it. We can list our current distributions. So Ubuntu 18.04 is the current one that I'm running. And then there is a command for -d to run a specific distribution, right? So WSL -d, and I'm going to run Ubuntu 18.04 from within VS Code. A couple of things with Docker, you have to run it with sudo docker, right? Run it once and that should be okay. So there's a difference between the command line and the daemon. There's essentially a Docker API running in the background, and then the CLI, the commands that you type in, interact with that API. So first thing that you need to do is you need to turn on that API, right? The way that you do this is sudo service docker start. This is going to start your Docker service if you want to find out if it's running or not. I think it's status-all. Yeah, so there you go. Docker, if it's a plus, it's running. If it's anything else, it's either not running or you don't, or it doesn't know. I mean, I think it's going to be either on or off. So you might as well just run that command just to make sure that it's on. So here we are. Again, in order to build Docker, we need a Docker file. Let's go ahead and just put a Docker file, in here. And we should keep it in SRC. Yeah, actually no, we're grabbing stuff from production, so that's fine. So the first thing we need is a base image for our Docker container. A base image is essentially like the environment that it runs in. So let's go ahead, open up our trusty search engine, and we want to search for something like AspNetCore Docker. This will basically take you to the Microsoft Docker repository. And here is essentially the image that we want, right? So mcr microsoft.com.net ASP.NET 5. Okay. So if you're running on 3.1, you can always check this here. I'm on net 5. If this says ASP.NET app 3.1 or something like that, you're on a different version. So you say from this thing here, and this is essentially your base layer. And this is going to contain the .NET runtime, not the .NET SDK. So you're not going to be able to do development with this. This is only to run your application in production. I think it should say somewhere here that it's to run your application in production, right? So, I mean, we're pretty much done with that bit. Let's go ahead and do this. So again, I'm not gonna explain too much. If you want to know more about Docker, again, video about that is in the description. So we're just gonna create a working directory. This is kind of like somewhere within the Docker container. We're gonna be in this folder. Okay. To this folder, we want to copy production. So the contents of this production folder are going to be in this app folder. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expose port 5000. This is where our application runs, right? So if in program CS you set this to a different port, make sure you do the same thing here. And the last bit is we want CMD. There are going to be 2 strings in this array, and they're going to be exactly what we've used to run it in the previous video. So .NET and then the name of the vite DLL. I mean, so if you wonder how I just did that, press on the thing, F2 to rename, Ctrl A to select everything, and Ctrl C to copy. So that's that. This is our Docker file. You should run a test if your Docker image works. So here we are in vite.api here. I'm gonna exit this to the AspNetCore vite. So we'll run docker build and enter. And make sure you don't forget the dot here. It basically chooses the current directory, and yeah, make sure you're in the same directory as your Docker file. So and yeah, so this is gonna come back to one of the points. It's not finished running. If you run into this problem, make sure you actually put sudo. You have to run Docker with sudo. There are things that you can do to not make it run with sudo. It's a separate issue. You can Google to figure out how to do it. But yeah, make sure you run it with sudo. So there we are. It's built successfully, right? So let's do docker images again. So here's our image that we've just built, right? So we can see the hash here. Next thing we can do is docker run expose the ports 5000, and de will be the container, and again, oh my, and there we go, right? So we should be able to hit this on localhost 5000, and there we go, right? So this is running from our Docker container from our WSL2 instance. Cool. So that is pretty much ready to go. So that's a working Docker container. We just need to get it in the cloud now. How do we do this, right? So if you're following along for the next step, if you haven't already, set up your Firebase account, because that is what we're gonna do now. And make sure you have your project created as well. Okay, I'm not gonna show you how to do that. Hopefully it's not hard. It's straightforward. It's just like a registration form. You'll figure it out. So I'm gonna come back here, and the first thing that you wanna do is just run gcloud, and you should see this. If gcloud runs for longer than 3 seconds, that means you already have it installed on the Windows side, and it's always going to trigger that Windows side, even though you will install one on the WSL2 side, right? So you're going to have 2 applications, and it's always going to trigger the Windows one. Delete that from the Windows side. You don't need it there. Work from the Windows Subversion for Linux side. Okay, otherwise figure out on your own how to only trigger one side. But yeah, triggering the Windows side from WSL2 just doesn't work. We need gcloud. What is gcloud? It's the Google Cloud SDK. Again, a link to the documentation is going to be in the description. We're going to go for Debian/Ubuntu installation process, and again, this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm just going to copy paste. Actually, we don't need that. Because we already installed it as part of as part of Docker. Okay, so that's done there. Let's grab this command. So this is quite a hefty one, half a gig. So yeah, I'll be back in a minute. gcloud should now be installed. If you type in gcloud, maximum 2 seconds that it should take you, and it's gonna basically show you all the commands that you can run. But yeah. We no longer need this page. You can run gcloud in it. So let's copy that command and let's close it, right? Run that command. Now you basically need to log in. So you can see I'm already logged in into my Google account here. So what's going to happen is you're going to press Y. And again, as I said, have your Firebase account ready, because what you're going to do is I'm going to cut this part, but you're going to follow this link, you're going to sign in, you're going to get a verification code, you're going to input it in there, and then you can basically select the default project. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to cut the video here. So we're back, right? That was easy. Hopefully you didn't get lost along the way. Let's proceed, right? So we have gcloud. What do we do now, right? Because I told you to create a Firebase account. This is part of Firebase where you can host your applications, or it's rather for hosting static sites, but then you can also do cloud functions. And if you want to serve like backends like .NET on Firebase, you can do that. And you use Cloud Run for it. And it's mostly still free. AWS provide a similar service, and Azure, I'm not sure. I couldn't find anything in their free tier. So it's free up to a point. AWS, I think it's 12 months, then that free shindig runs out. For Google Cloud, it's a monthly free thing. So let's go ahead and take a look again, I'm going to be following the documentation here because this is, if you would have wanted to do this on your own, this is where you would have ended up, and you would be reading this thing, right? Serve dynamic content and host microservices with Cloud Run, right? But you can do this with Firebase as well, right? So very simple hello world application. We kind of did that part. This is basically our Vite and .NET application. Container is an app and uploaded to container registry. Okay, so uploaded to container registry. We haven't done that. Come to this bit here. We've written our Docker file, so we're good here. Next thing is build your container image using Cloud Build. Okay. So this is the part where I said you can build your Docker image in the cloud. We're not going to do that. We're going to build it locally, and we're just going to upload the container to the registry in the cloud. Okay. So for this, we're going to follow this little link here because, you know, if you read this and you're like, oh, dude, but you got to read the whole thing, right? It's actually interesting to read documentation. Anyway. Let's open up this bit, and again, you just read this whole thing, and we end up on these steps. You will need to build your project with a tag and image URL. Image URL will need to look something like this. And again, create a Firebase account, and that Firebase account has a project, right? So if you make your way to the GCP console, this will be the project. For me, it's raw coding dev. Okay, so let's just copy this template. We're gonna come back here. And we're going to do the same thing. So Docker images, we basically want our repository and tag against this image. So I'm going to bring back the build command. I'm going to put /t, which is same as tag. And here is the template that we essentially have to fill out. For me, it's raw coding dev. Hopefully you haven't named your project something crazy. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough time. Or maybe not, maybe not. .NET-Vite, right? That's what's gonna be, what's gonna happen, right? And if you don't want to rebuild it, you can figure out how to actually tag this image. That might be fun as well. Otherwise, just follow what I'm doing. Okay, so there we are. Again, sudo docker images, and there we are. So we have our latest one with the correct repository and tags. Cool. Let's come back here. So we've tagged our build. Let's just run this command. I'm just going to run it from here because why not? It's going to basically ask you, do you want to change some configuration in this directory? And you're going to say, yes, please. That's it, right? Done. And then we want a Docker push and image URL. I don't know about you, but this seems like too easy. And then just this repository URL right here. If this step is failing for you because some API is not enabled, what you want to do is you want to reach your Google Cloud Platform, and don't try to use this menu. It's going to be full of things. It's too many services to seep through. We're only going to be using 2, container registry and Cloud Run. So in the search here, if you don't want to be a clicker and press on things, you can use the / and that will just take you there. And just type in container, and you will see container registry here. And you will have a little enable API here, or enable service, right? Just click that button and all good. This is once our Docker container got published. So we go in here and there's our container. Cool, right? So what we can do is we can click on this and we can deploy, and we can deploy this to essentially 3 different services. For this, we're going to use Cloud Run. And if you want to read more a little bit about how the pricings of Cloud Run, it's quite interesting. So basically the size of the container, how many megabytes it takes up, that's sort of the price. It's like a gigabyte seconds or something like that. But anyway, let's deploy to Cloud Run. We're gonna get a little template. Again, if the API is not enabled, it's gonna enable it for you. But yeah, .NET-Vite service name, that's fine. Region doesn't matter too much. I'm just gonna pick US Central. Docker image, I mean, it's selected for you. Yep. And one thing, go down to advanced settings because it takes container port 8080 by default. Let's just change it to 5000. I don't know. I'm paranoid. I don't want to accidentally scale up to 100 instances. So I'm just going to cap this at 3. So I'm going to press next, and then I'm going to say allow unauthenticated invocations. Don't worry about this. It's basically, if you think about how companies have intranet, that's only secured to them, this is what you're doing. You're sort of exposing it to the outside world, where outside world can call into this service, right? Let's go ahead and create this. So what this is going to do is it's just going to run our container in the cloud, right? I mean, that's it. And it's going to put an automatic domain against it. So the next step that you would do to really productionize it is set up a domain and point it at this service, right? But other than that, it gives you a little URL that you can follow, and there's our application. The API is working. Again, we can kind of come back here at network, see that it's calling into this URL, bump up the count, whatnot, right? So with the Firebase services, you can have your Firestore where it's essentially a document storage, and you can call that. So, and that's free. Firebase has a lot of free things, so you can essentially almost host this for free. I think I've ran one Cloud Run container, and this is pretty lightweight. So this is like 206 megabytes. I think I've only ever paid like 1 penny a month to run this. So it's a bargain, really a bargain. All right. But that's pretty much it. You just need a, what's it called? A Docker container and a Firebase account. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's now live. Just set up the domain now and you're good to go, right? So as always, thank you very much for watching. Again, all the links are going to be in the description. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section. Don't forget to join the Discord server, and have a good day.